Your inner voice. A sixth sense. Holy Spirit. Spidey senses tingling, gut instinct, inner knowing, true self, divine guidance, still small voice of God. No matter what you call it, your intuition is there for a reason. It's there to guide you, and it's there to move you forward in ways that are going to challenge you and challenge the people around you, but will ultimately help you live the deepest, most fulfilling and exciting life you can imagine. But how do you know when you should follow your intuition? I have found that when I look back on my life, I know when there were times that it was exactly my intuition telling me what to do. And I also know times that I totally ignored my intuition and I went the opposite direction. So if you can do that in your own life, it'll help you make decisions now. So what I want to do here today is give you 7 examples of following your intuition in practical ways. These examples are from my own life. 4 examples are from when I followed my intuition and knew it was the right thing to do. And then 3 examples of when I ignored my intuition, even though I knew I should have followed it. So the first example of me trusting my intuition and being glad that I did was buying a Tofino camper van. I spent like most of my life savings on this camper van. It was really scary, but I had this feeling. It was my intuition. It was my inner voice telling me, buy this camper van, and I love it. I've had it for about 2.5 months now, and I've gone on 6 or 7 trips, and it's just perfect for me. I am so glad I did it, even though it was really scary. I just felt like I had to do it. My second example of following my intuition was last January 2019. I turned 50 in last March, and I wanted to celebrate by going away for the full month of January, doing a solo spiritual journey, and I wanted to go to Nepal in India. I had to leave my husband at home with the dogs, and he has a full-time job, and he's stressed, and it's hard. And he suggested, why don't you wait till March, till your actual birthday? I was like, no, I just really feel like I gotta go in January, and I just had the intuition. So I'm in Hong Kong at the end of January, and I loved Hong Kong. It was amazing. Coronavirus had already been identified. People were already wearing masks. Stuff was already shut down back in January. When I got back to Canada on February 1st, we didn't even really know about the pandemic. And then of course, mid-March, bam, everything totally shut down. My birthday, I would never have been able to go in March anywhere if I had waited. My third example of following my intuition was this house. My husband and I bought this house about 10 years ago, and I knew from the first moment I saw the picture of it, and it was a picture of the bathroom of all things, and I saw that picture that the real estate agent sent us on email, and I loved it. But I was like, no, there's no way that I could love a picture of a bathroom and want the house. Walked into this house, and I knew as soon as I stepped foot, I knew this was the house that we should buy. So it was a reach financially for us, which was very scary, but we did it and we don't regret it. My fourth example is marrying my husband. So we were friends for 17 years before we actually got married, and I knew he was the marrying type, but I never wanted to date him. We met when I was 17 or 18 and he was 21. I knew that if I dated him and if we ended up getting married way back then, it would not have gone well because I wasn't ready. When I was 35, I got back from Africa after teaching there for 3 years, and we had been friends the whole time, but we had lost touch while I was in Africa. So I got back and I called him wondering if he was still single, and I didn't propose to him, but I was ready to date him. We started dating, and a few months later, because we had already known each other for so long, we got married. We've now been married for 15 years. My fifth example of not trusting my inner voice was the wedding. We got married in a Catholic church that his family had been going to for years and years and years and years. I'm not Catholic. I'd never been to this Catholic church before, and I didn't want to wed. So I kept making jokes like, we should just go off to Las Vegas and elope. Let's just go off and have a Hawaiian wedding. And I was joking, but the truth was I really didn't want to get married in a church. but I didn't know how to say that. The sixth example of me rejecting my inner knowing or my intuition was before I went to Africa. I was trying to decide, should I be a teacher or a preacher? I decided to go with the Bachelor of Education to be a teacher, even though my intuition was telling me to be to go to pastor school, but I knew that I wouldn't be able to preach. I knew that if I was a lady preacher or a pastor, I'd probably be the children's minister or the women's minister, and not that there's anything wrong with that. I wanted to be a preacher and a teacher of the Bible, and I thought that if I went down that route, I would never find a job and no one would hire me, so I didn't do it. I totally ignored my inner voice, and I got my education degree instead, and I taught language arts and high school journalism for 3 years. I was not a good teacher. I hated it. The seventh and final example of me having a strong inner knowing and ignoring it was when we adopted our first dog. So we got this big black German Shepherd. This German Shepherd is, I think she was 75 pounds, and I weigh like 100 pounds. She was young, she was untrained. My husband and I hadn't ever had a dog before, and it was a disaster. We didn't know what we were doing. So we called an obedience trainer, and she came over a few times to try and teach us how to own a dog. But I cried every day for 2 weeks because I didn't know what to do with this dog. We had to rehome her. We had to give her back to the SPCA, and we cried. I ignored my intuition in that case, and it was a mistake because returning her to the SPCA was so painful and hard. The good thing that came out of that was that I wrote a blog post and I did a video on how to cope with guilt and grief when you have to rehome your dog. I'm glad that I was able to have my experience so that I could write about it and help people get through the pain. Having an intuition and following it doesn't mean you're gonna succeed all the time. It just means that you're trusting yourself and you're moving forward in your life. Following your intuition means you have to put people out. You might have to disappoint or anger people. You might even lose relationships if you trust yourself and move forward. You'll probably lose money. You may start a business and it may not work. It does get easier over time, especially if you reflect back on your life. Not just listen to my life, but listen to your life. So when were the times that you did follow, and what did that feel like? And when were the times you did not follow, and what did that feel like? That's how you learn more about yourself and about following that inner voice that only you can hear. Other people aren't going to be able to understand it. You might not be able to explain it. In fact, you probably won't be able to explain it, but you can hear it. And I encourage you to follow it. Take good care of yourself, because you are worth taking good care of. Mwah!